So I'm going to make somewhat of a controversial statement here. Most of the people watching this are nerds. I say this because, well, I mean, come on. Of course, I am too. And many of us collect stuff as well. So what if you found a potentially interesting collectible, only to have it spiral out of control, quickly becoming one of the biggest mysteries on the internet? Stay tuned for case file 767-8620, Chatswood Youth Song. This search started over 4 years ago with a post on the Lostwave subreddit by a poster named Churnyet. Churnyet went into a lot of detail, essentially explaining that he had found this video in a VHS cassette case in what here in the United States we call thrift shops, but in Australia, where Churnyet is from, they call op shops. Churnyet bought it thinking it was unique. It was a Little Rascals VHS cassette. But when she opened it, inside was a tape that said Chatswood Youth * mono. And lo and behold, when they put this in the VCR at home, it wasn't any version of the Little Rascals at all, but this seemingly amateurishly produced video about a place called the Chatswood Youth Center. So the investigation into this song started before the inception of the Find My Mind server, which meant we already had leads, because of course this video had tons of kids and adults in it. And because we'd quickly figure out this video was from late 1997, everyone in this video would now squarely fit into the adult category. Not to age myself, but as a case in point, I was 13 years old when this video was produced. Anyway, we'd contact as many people in this video as we could, and luckily enough, Churnyet was part of the search from the inception. Ultimately, for a while, the search for this song seemed stagnant, and we'd go down past the lead of nowhere, like mentioning the striking similarities to the band Blur. Heck, even Churnyet seemed to have disappeared. Though, at least they had told us that contacting the Chatswood Youth Center as a whole had led nowhere. We also discussed a second song in the video and whether it could be by the same band. That's about where it's at until December 2023, and even then when Churnyet returned, it was with little news other than suggesting that we try to ID one of the youth center staffers, John, seen in the video. There was some excitement when an Australian radio show covered the search for this song, though it led nowhere. We also talked about the fact that The World Was So Easy was solved before this, and I only mention this in the striking similarity between these both being oddly personal stories that led to a Lostwave search. If only I could interview Churnyet about those similarities. Also, does that song have an anniversary coming up? Anyway, Churnyet then mentioned some new leads found by a YouTuber named StrangeAustralian, who really helped dig much deeper into the search. For example, he helped find an article that we had been told about but previously unable to find, an article that basically labeled these adolescent kids from around Chatswood as thugs. It was our understanding that this video had come as a result of that article, and we now knew this article existed. He also visited the youth center, where he took this picture of a mural dedicated to one of the staffers at this time the video was made. This staffer, Harley, was, by all reports, a role model for so many of these kids. Which is why it really does sadden me to know that this mural is there to honor him, because he would sadly pass away in a motorcycle accident only about a month after this video was made. But I think just as we learned of Gabor72's passing, which ultimately led us to solving just a game to honor his memory, we can do the same here for Harley. And so on that note, let's look at the positives from this. See, StrangeAustralian was able to reach a staffer named Colin, who had put us in touch with the long-sought John. And suddenly, this search had potential it hadn't had in years. This also led to another significant lead in the search, a record label called Blind Records. First discovered by Saber, this label seemed like me an ideal candidate for our mystery band. This in turn led to a band lead, in this case a band called Neanderthal. However, Webb got in touch with one of the bands on Blind Records who told us this didn't sound like Neanderthal. Webb also pointed out this Facebook comment about a magazine called On the Street that seemed interesting, if nothing else, but it required an actual trip to the library. Meanwhile, we seemed to get even more confirmation that Blind Records unfortunately wouldn't have our answer. Speaking of the library, well, one of the local city libraries that StrangeAustralian had visited would actually post about this mystery on their own Facebook page. Then things got even more exciting. Like I mentioned, StrangeAustralian and Churnyet had gotten in touch with that staffer I mentioned, Colin, and Churnyet did an interview with StrangeAustralian for his YouTube channel. It's here I'm going to break a cardinal sin and tell you, seriously, watch StrangeAustralian's video on this. I'm only skimming the surface of the story, and his video does a phenomenally great job at covering the story, as well as interviewing Churnyet. link in the description below. If only I could interview Churnyat too. Speaking of interviews, Churnyat also did an interview with the local radio show I mentioned at the beginning of this video. And then, even bigger news, that we finally got in touch with the other staffer we've been looking to contact for years, John. He wound up being super helpful, as well as filling in on many details we hadn't had before. Oh, and that magazine I mentioned earlier, it'd be brought up again with marktrail pointing out there was a copy of it in Australia's National Library, and Churnyat said she might have time to go and find it. And then this investigation would again pick up steam, as Churnyat would learn this wasn't some documentary just made because an article called These Kids Thugs. No, it was part of an Australian government-funded program called ArtStart, and even had a name, Race Around Chatswood. This also led to the discovery that one of the neighboring towns to Chatswood had a music competition that fed into ArtStart as well. This in turn led to even more, including a label called ArtStart Hunters. A band on that label was on this compilation album on Discogs. And look, I was able to contribute to this search, and seriously, this has been one of my favorite searches to take an active part in. Yes, I play favorites. And if videos like this one are your favorite, then you can show that to the almighty YouTube algorithm by hitting those like and subscribe buttons. Anyway, this would become yet another Lostwave song with a bounty on it, as basketry would offer a $50 bounty on the Chatswood Youth Song. And Churnyat would say she's in touch with a major Australian broadcast network to talk about the song. And look, I'd rear my head in after I got a hold of the two Discogs contributors to that compilation album I mentioned. They were both super friendly, but seemed unable to provide any actual help. But, well, something made me decide to talk to Spiy, aka Warren, a little bit more, because he seemed interested enough. I felt like I should just fill him in on the details. Oh, and guess who lived up to her promise to visit the National Library? Churnyat, along with StrangeAustralian. And this would end up being huge. Because we were right, the magazine wound up being there. And it was incredible. It had 2 pages of information about ArtStart 1997, along with several band names. And StrangeAustralian would again bring up how unusual yet cool it is that a physical library could end up solving this whole mystery once and for all. If only I could interview Churnyat about it. Like, what, the 3rd time I've said that? I have an idea. There's no place like your local library. There's no place like your local library. There's no place like your local library.
You'd be surprised how much local wealth of information you will find at your public library. That's why I love the public library now, because there's a library when I was doing the search for it that she gave a great saying, is that Google can give you a million answers for your question, but the library will give you the right question for you, right answer for your question. Sorry.
Oh, did I not mention I'd interviewed her? Well, people stopped watching my videos around this point, so I needed something to hook you with. Anyway, one of the leads to come out of this trip to the library was a compilation CD called If It Fits, and we started to rule out bands on that CD like this band, Infringement. Oh, and my conversation with Warren, aka Spiy, wound up being potentially more fruitful than I'd thought, as it turns out his friend had recognized a number of the kids in the video and had even taught them music. So I filled in Warren with more information as well as an invite to join the search, though I have yet to hear back from him. Here's my talking about this lead with Churnyat.
I know, even for me, like, you know, I reached out to some random Discogs editor of one of the ArtStart connected albums, and then he was like, "Oh, well, my friend actually taught music to some of the kids in this video." And I was just like, "Wow, what a small world."
Yeah, no, seriously, like,
I'm still hoping I hear back from him again. I'm kind of waiting to hear back at this point, but either way, even if that leads nowhere, it's still crazy that it's that. Like, feels like such a small world type of thing,
You'd be surprised. Like, metropolitan Sydney is the largest city in the country, but even then, it can sort of feel like a small town, like a small country town.
You think that'd be it? Heck no, because Saber also found someone he was confident would, if nothing else, be able to tell us exactly who our mystery band was. This lead would end up helping with several compilation CDs we'd found but been able to actually source, as resort of that fateful library trip, though sadly not able to actually ID our mystery band. Speaking of compilation CDs, Churnyat would end up creating a list of all the compilations and other CDs that had come out of the search for this. And let me say, she's done an amazing job. Because I remember when this list was almost entirely just lost or partially lost. In fact, media preservation is one of the whole reasons this search started, and one of the things that interests me about Lostwave as well. Here's me talking about that with Chernyat.
You find an opportunity to be able to be in possession of something that's just been long forgotten, and having that thing that you've obtained really helps to kind of feel like you've found a piece of truth. Well, for me, trying to preserve history is like preserving truth. And that's what I feel like is a big thing to have when it comes to something like that. Just that unfiltered, original piece of truth.
And Chernyat finished a website all about the research and hunt for this song. Link in the description below. And, well, that's about where the search sounds now. I wound up speaking to Chernyat for about 45 minutes from everything about other Lostwave songs, like The World Was So Easy, to Bluey, to the local library, and everything in between. That interview will drop on my channel tomorrow. Or if you're watching this in the future, then it's there now. And I will update the description when it's on my channel. I'm going to wrap it up because suddenly I feel like visiting my local library. I wonder if my library card is still good. Until next time, I'm PersonOfDistraction, and I'm now listening to